Good morning, this is Pauline.
Good morning everyone, this is Mike.
And here is the site for Wight News for Friday the 23rd of August. On Tuesday the 27th of August, the swimming group are swimming at the waterside pool in Ryde from 8 p.m. till 8:45. The pool is closed to the public whilst the group swims. There are male and female volunteers to help you get in and out of the pool, as well as lifeguards to ensure your safety. To join the swimming group, please call Sight for Wight first to notify us of your swimming ability. You need to register with the office at Millbrook House first to be able to swim with the group. On Wednesday the 28th, the weekly coffee morning and low vision drop-in held at Millbrook House will not take place during August. On Thursday the 29th of August, the Thursday social group will not be meeting at Millbrook House during August. On Friday the 30th of August, the Striders group will be meeting for a walk from Lake to Bembridge, 5.75 miles, taking approximately 2.5 to 3 hours. Lunch is booked for one at the Propeller in Bembridge. If you would like to join the Striders group, then please contact Laura Jasper on 522205 or email members@iwsb.org.uk. And in any other news, the Isle of Wight Fellowship for Visually Impaired meet at Bethany Evangelical Church, Union Street, Newport on Saturday the 31st of August at 3 p.m. The speaker this month is Mr. Justin Freestone. Activities include hymns, quiz, story reading and a short Christian message, followed by tea. Please note, a collection is taken from which donations are made to the Torch Trust for the Blind. Hymn books and scripture in large print and braille are available. Further details from Mrs. Jackie Moore, telephone 520797.
Continuing any other news, Sight for Wight is looking for donations of tombola prizes for upcoming summer shows and also donations of raffle prizes, i.e. meals, car MOTs, gift tokens, etc. from businesses. If you are able to help, please contact Sight for Wight on 522205 or email admin@iwsb.org.uk. Visit to Osborne House. Join us for a visit to Osborne House on Monday the 7th of October. Start time is 10:30 a.m. for approximately 4 to 5 hours. There is an outdoor picnic area, dependent on the weather, if you would like to bring a packed lunch. The self-service cafe sells light snacks and the Gazelle House Cake Shop at Swiss Cottage serves a small selection of snacks and cold drinks. Costs for an adult is £18.50 and £16.70 for a senior citizen. Minibus transport may be available depending on location and will cost £2. Closing date for applications is Friday the 20th of September. For further details or to book your place, please contact Laura Jasper on 522205 or email members@iwsb.org.uk. Please note that there will not be a West Wight coffee and chat at the end of the Line Cafe Freshwater on Tuesday the 27th of August. Also, there will not be a Knighton coffee and chat at Knighton Post Office on the 3rd of September. Visit to the Isle of Wight Distillery. Monday, the 11th of November, meet first at 10:30 a.m. at the Old Barracks Tea Room in Puckpool Park, Ryde, followed by a talk and tasting at 12 noon for approximately 45 minutes to 1 hour at the Isle of Wight Distillery, Pondwell, Ryde. No charge for the talk or tasting. Minibus transport may be available depending on location and will cost £2. Closing date for applications is Friday the 25th of October. For further details or to book your place, please contact Laura Jasper on 522205 or email members@iwsb.org.uk. Save the Waverley Quiz Night. Many of you will know of the paddle steamer, the Waverley, the last seagoing paddle steamer in the world. There will be a fundraising quiz and raffle for the Waverley Trust at the Waverley Inn, Carisbrooke, on Thursday the 5th of September, 7:30 p.m. until 10 p.m. Teams of 4 at £3 per person. Please call 522 338 to book a table. Please note, this is not fundraising for Sight for Wight, as some of you do attend our quiz, which we host at the Waverley Inn a few times a year. This week's In Touch, the politics of power and blindness. The first of 2 episodes examining what power means in the context of being blind or visually impaired. This is the first episode of a 2-part series examining the times in our lives as blind people when we are faced with a loss of control and power entirely caused by our visual impairment. Both programs look at ways of gathering yourself, restoring your dignity, suppressing that sense of powerlessness, and giving you back the control everyone needs to be functioning adults. Situations like feeling loss of control because of access, orientation and/or mobility, inability to take part in a meaningful way in activities, moving house, financial transaction, managing forms and paperwork. Our thanks to everybody we spoke to during the researching of this programme. Presenter is Peter Wight and the producer is Lee Camutat.
And this is the news from the county press for Friday, August the 23rd. The headline is Eagle Soaring Over the Isle of Wight, an article by Alan Marriott. After months of anticipation, 6 young white-tailed sea eagles were released on the Isle of Wight this week. Their release is the first stage of a 5-year project by the Roy Dennis Wildlife Foundation in conjunction with Forestry England. It aims at reintroducing this beautiful raptor to southern England for the first time in 240 years. 3 pairs of eagles have been acclimatising at a secret location for 4 weeks prior to taking to the skies. The licence allows for 60 birds to be released over the next 5 years. The island was chosen as the location to reintroduce the white-tailed eagles, as it offers an ideal habitat for coastal birds. Areas where cliff edges have slipped and Isle of Wight woodland will provide quiet areas and potential nesting sites. Another benefit was its central position on the south coast. The first birds were given thorough medical checks by vet John Chitty. Then on Wednesday at 5 a.m, the pens were opened to allow the young birds of prey their freedom. Roy Dennis, who has been reintegrating species such as the sea eagle for 60 years, said he was delighted to them being back on the Isle of Wight and hoped some would stay. Watching them take to the skies has been a truly special moment, he said. Establishing a population here will link and support emerging populations in the Netherlands, France and Ireland. The aim is restoring the species to the southern half of Europe. Tim Mackrell, Foundation ornithologist, said it was difficult to predict how they would fan out, but with an expected range of 50 kilometres from the release site in the first few years, it was unlikely all would stay here. The birds tend to go away, then come back nearer to their release site to mate, but that is 5 years away. We have attached data trackers to the birds to enable us to track them in their first few years. The project has not been without objections, and a number of consultation meetings earlier in the year sought to allay fears. Tim said, "We dealt with issues such as birds taking squirrels and lambs, which were major worries from farmers and wildlife enthusiasts. We listened to their concerns, and the answers were that in Ireland and Holland, where birds had been released, there were no incidents of them taking healthy lambs." Roy Dennis pointed to the upturn in tourism in the Scottish island of Mull, estimated to be worth £5 million a year, and also in Ireland. Roy said, "When we first took the eagles to Ireland, we had farmers protesting at the airport, trying to block us. But now, at least 2 farmers are looking after the birds out there." The project has been keen to involve islanders, and around 15 to 20 volunteers have been supporting Ireland-based foundation officer Steve Edgerton-Reid in caring for the birds. 2 of these, John Wilmot of Gurnard and Steve Jones of Ventnor, were on duty this week, manning the screens in a tiny caravan at the release site.
Charity opens woodwork shop. Charity has opened a new woodworking shop aimed at training adults with learning disabilities and giving them the skills they need to make and sell their own pieces. The Phoenix Project, a specialist day service for adults with learning disabilities, has expanded its woodworking project from 2 sheds in the grounds of its Ryde premises to a new centre on the Riverway Industrial Estate in Newport called Wooden Things. Samantha Whittingham, Chief Executive of the Phoenix Project, said, "The new satellite unit, Wooden Things, has been specially adapted to offer individuals with learning disabilities and autism the opportunity to learn and develop new skills, work with others and be part of the local community. Trained staff and volunteers provide support for individuals to enable them to work on their own projects or work as part of a team to produce items which are then sold to the public." The ribbon was cut by John Packer, a Newport branch manager at Dewson's, which has provided the charity with discounted wood. Miss Whittingham said, "The successful move to Newport could not have been achieved without the support from staff, volunteers and other organisations. Thank you to everyone who came to celebrate with us. If you are interested in accessing this service, please get in touch with the team here at the Phoenix Project."
And this is the Experts in Care section, and the heading is "Friendly Advice is Available." Article by Emmy Lewis. Age UK Isle of Wight's vision is for an island community where older people are respected, valued, included and able to live the life they choose. Having a good care system in place is vital to achieve this. Age UK Isle of Wight has a team of care navigators whose purpose is, as their name suggests, to help individuals navigate the social care system. We know from our experience that the very foundation of an exceptional care system is effective communication. People should only have to tell their story once, and it should be listened to so their needs are understood. In addition, information should be accessible to allow individuals to make informed decisions for themselves. More than 50% of the island's population aged over 65 years old are living with at least one long-term health condition, and 1 in 6 islanders over 65 live alone. Through listening to our older residents, Age UK Isle of Wight has learnt that most people simply wanted to know someone would be there for them during challenging times. At Age UK Isle of Wight, we pride ourselves on doing our part to care for the island's population, but we are just one component of a larger care system, which many islanders couldn't live without. To find out more about what Age UK Isle of Wight can help you with, call 525282. Alternatively, visit the website for more information at ageukiw.org.uk.
Firm launches 5.5 vessel. A Cowes boat builder has launched a new firefighting vessel capable of travelling at 32 knots and supplying 4,500 litres of water per minute. Aluminium Marine Consultants, that's AMC, one of the country's leading manufacturers of fast aluminium vessels, was contracted to build the boat by Angloco Limited. It will be exported to Guyana in South America. The 14-metre 5.5 vessel has been designed and built to meet the risks and hazards of the modern-day marine firefighting and will carry extensive firefighting and marine equipment. Founded in 2007, AMC is one of the country's leading manufacturers of fast aluminium vessels. It employs 35 staff at its Cowes Yard and specialises in the build of aluminium alloy workboats. It has built 46 vessels for applications including crew transfer, pilotage, rescue and recovery.
Again, under the Experts in Care heading, the subheading is Ask for Help If You Need It, an article by Kate Cramwell. Sometimes it takes courage to ask for help. If you find yourself struggling with tasks which might have once been easy, HUKIW is there to help you when you need it. The Just About You service offers friendly and trustworthy support workers who can help you maintain independence and live well at home. Personally chosen, trained and DBS checked, these support workers can assist with a range of tasks, including housework, meal preparation and shopping. The Just About You service is flexible. You choose how to use your support worker each week, and you can have any number of hours you need daily, weekly or monthly. HUKIW also offers a home safe service to help you stay safe and comfortable and remain independent in your own home. Experienced, reliable and trusted tradespeople can help with all the jobs around the house which you've been meaning to do, including home safety adaptations, general household repairs and minor carpentry, plumbing and electrical work. To find out more about what HUKIW can help you with, call 525282 or visit ageUKIW.org.uk.
Care companions in time of need. Families facing death and bereavement at St Mary's Hospital now have access to specially trained volunteers from Mountbatten who can offer dedicated time to support people during such a difficult time. The end-of-life care companions have been carefully selected and given comprehensive training by experts in end-of-life care at Mountbatten, who are working with the Isle of Wight NHS Trust to improve support to people in hospital who are dying as well as to their loved ones. Liz Arnold, Mountbatten Director of Nursing, said, "It is recognised that ensuring one-to-one dedicated support for patients who die in hospital can be challenging in such a busy environment. By training our volunteers in areas including communication skills and bereavement support, we hope to offer comfort, reassurance and a listening ear to both patients and their families. Through our volunteers, we can also explain more about our specialist bereavement service, which is open to anyone wherever a death may have occurred." Shane Moody, the Trust's Clinical Director for End-of-Life Care and Consultant Nurse for Critical Care and End-of-Life Care, said, "Thanks to working in partnership with Mountbatten, we can provide this new service within the acute hospital. If the scheme proves successful, then we aim to recruit more. Families or patients who would like a companion to support them during their stay at St Mary's should speak to a member of staff on the ward."
An article by Joe Davis headed Health Bosses MMR Jab Plea. NHS England and Public Health England have urged school leavers to ensure they are vaccinated against measles, mumps and rubella and meningococcal disease, which can lead to meningitis and septicemia. Between January and July this year, there have been 3 reported cases of measles and 95 of mumps in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. Claire Simpson, Public Health Consultant and Screening and Immunisation Lead for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, said, "Measles is not a harmless childhood illness as many think. It is extremely infectious and can strike anyone, and sadly in some instances can have very serious long-term and life-changing consequences. The MMR vaccination is highly effective and can save lives and prevent devastating lifelong disability. Measles can be more severe in teenagers and adults, and NHS England and Public Health England have urged people to be aware of the symptoms. These include a high fever and a rash, and not to attend busy places if they are unwell. Ms Simpson said, universities and colleges can be hotspots for measles, mumps and meningococcal diseases, as they present the perfect opportunity for the infection to spread. School leavers can get their jabs from their GP before they leave for university. Alternatively, they can register with a new GP practice where they are studying in the first week of term.
Puffins to replace pelican crossings. Pelican crossings across the island will be replaced with new crossings that use infrared to detect pedestrians. The new puffin crossings use scanners to detect the presence of pedestrians and change lights accordingly. They are reactive to people using the crossing rather than based on a timer, which means less waiting. However, there will be some disruption while the crossings are replaced. Island Roads Powered Apparatus Manager Scott Berbera said, "Puffin crossings are seen as more advanced, so this programme should make a valuable improvement to the safety of the network. As these crossings are traditionally in busy areas, there could be some disruption. We would like to thank motorists for their understanding and hope they appreciate the work will help keep our roads as safe as possible."
New contract for carers service. The Isle of Wight Council is recommissioning its support for unpaid carers as funding for Carers IW is due to expire next year. Carers IW has been funded by the Council to provide support for adult carers since 2014, with additional lottery funding through the Age Friendly Island programme. However, both lots of funding are due to end next spring, with the Council looking at future service delivery. Carers IW, which is based at the Riverside Centre, Newport, said it hopes to submit a tender for the new contract. If it is unsuccessful, the charity said some staff could be transferred to work for a new provider. Council spokesperson said the grant funding agreement, which governs service delivery, is due to end on the 31st of May 2020. And as a result, it is necessary for the Council to look at future service delivery. We'll be using the current consultation to identify what carers on the IW want from their support services and using this to shape future provision. This is a valued service and we want to ensure it continues, but also that it meets the needs of the people it is commissioned to support. The contract for the future service will be advertised and organisations who can deliver the new service are welcome to submit a tender to do so. We will welcome a tender response from Carers IW if they feel they are able to deliver the new service and wish to do so. Any bid from Carers IW will be evaluated as with any other tender response. Carers IW has been providing support for unpaid carers on the island for over 30 years and said carers would continue to be supported.
Lonely Planet's love for Ireland. 3 Isle of Wight experiences have been named among the UK's 500 best events and activities by none other than Lonely Planet. The renowned travel guide has published a list of the best experiences for travellers and tourists, with 3 activities on the island coming highly recommended by its writers. Its Ultimate UK Travel List 2019 ranks the 500 most memorable and compelling sights and experiences across Great Britain, Northern Ireland and the Channel Islands to create a definitive guide. For the first time, Lonely Planet's community of travel experts have chosen the best sites and experiences and ranked them in order of their brilliance on the travel list. Leading the way for the island was experience number 161, paddling in the island's sea caves. According to the guide, it's only a few miles south of the Hampshire coast, but in places the Isle of Wight's coastline feels surprisingly wild. By far the most entertaining way to explore it is by kayak, canoe, or even, if your balance is up to it, stand-up paddleboard. Next on the list at number 364 were the island's beaches. The guide said, "Everyone knows about the southwest beaches, but you'll likely find quieter strands on the Isle of Wight, perfect for sunbathing, sandcastle building, and, as long as you can stand the chilly channel temperatures, even a spot of swimming." The third experience to make the list at number 395 was Cows Week, with the guide saying, "Nowhere knows how to do a regatta better than Great Britain, and the reigning monarch of regattas is Cows Week, the largest in the world with more than 1,000 boats and 8,000 competitors." Edinburgh Fringe bagged the number 1 slot, followed by the British Museum and the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland. Will Miles, Managing Director of Visit Isle of Wight, said, "It's fantastic the island has been included in this esteemed Lonely Planet guide. Beaches, water sports and major events like Cows Week are a magnet for visitors, and I'm delighted that a number of the island's wonderful offerings featured."
Campaign to protect beaches. The Isle of Wight Council said bathing waters on the island had never been cleaner and has launched a new campaign to keep them that way, working with Southern Water and the Environment Agency. The campaign has encouraged people to recycle, bin litter and dog mess, not to flush wet wipes, cotton buds or grease down drains. It also suggested following the "if it's yellow, let it mellow, if it's brown, flush it down" rule. Surfers Against Sewage rep Matt Harwood praised the council for the campaign, but said more needed to be done to challenge Southern Water. Matt Harwood said, "I think it's really good the council sees this as an important issue, but where is the challenging of Southern Water? The two things we expect are clean water through the taps and knowing dirty water is disposed of properly. Unless you have very, very extreme weather, the issue with runoff into the sea should not be happening." The council said challenging Southern Water was down to the regulators, and its campaign was about doing simple, everyday things to keep the coastline clean.
Isle of Wight Radio beats the BBC. Isle of Wight Radio has been named the island's most listened to radio station, topping national BBC and large commercial stations. According to official listening figures, Isle of Wight Radio now has more than 77,000 regular adult listeners, with more islanders waking up to its flagship programme, Topping in the Morning, with Paul Haley, George and Jamie, than any other station. There have been thousands of new listeners tuning in over the past few months. The radio station has seen an 8% increase in audience listener numbers. Paul Topping, programming director, said, "The team is delighted with the new figures and pleased that the islanders love listening to the breakfast show. To be honest, I am amazed that so many people love listening to us messing around and having fun in the morning, especially with so much radio competition. If you listen, thank you so much. If you don't, we would love you to join the morning party." Claire John, Managing Director, said, "Isle of Wight Radio is coming up to its 30th year, and the latest figures prove we play a very strong part in the island's community. These results are testament to the fantastic presenters, news and sales team. Thank you so much for supporting us."
Wastewater leaves surfers feeling sick by David Anderson. Southern Water's infrastructure has been branded inadequate by regulators, as Isle of Wight surfers have complained beaches reek of sewage and leave them nauseous and dizzy. In the past 30 days, there have been 15 instances of increased risk of water pollution due to heavy rain on the island. In Shanklin, St Helens, Seagrove, Ryde, Cowes and Gurnard, according to the Environment Agency. Following heavy rain, excess water is stored in large tanks. When they fill up, wastewater from washing machines, showers and dishwashers, diluted by rainwater running off roads and land, is released into the sea. Isle of Wight Surfers Against Sewage rep Matt Harwood said, Southern Water must do more. Matt Harwood said, as soon as we get heavy rainfall, water is discharged. A lot of it gets treated, but they haven't got the facilities to deal with the amount of water. Regulator Ofwat said Southern Water's standards fell below those of other sewage companies in a report published in June. It said storm tanks were too small, equipment was not properly maintained, and there had been a lack of capital investment. Southern Water said it had invested millions in its wastewater network in recent years. A new storm tank has been installed in Shanklin as part of a £4 million project. Ofwat will soon release its final decision on what action will be taken against Southern Water for, in quotes, significant breaches of its licence conditions and its statutory duties. A criminal investigation by the Environment Agency into the environmental aspects of Southern Water's alleged breaches, launched in 2016, remains ongoing.
Injured tourist says, thanks to the island's wonderful people. A holidaymaker who fell at Fort Victoria this week has thanked the emergency teams who rescued her and the wonderful people of the Isle of Wight who stayed with her on the beach until help arrived. Alison Chester said she suffered 3 broken bones in her leg and a dislocated ankle in the accident, which happened shortly before 6 p.m. last Wednesday. As reported, Freshwater and Newport firefighters, the Needles Coast Guard, rescue teams and Isle of Wight ambulance crews were called to the scene. Alison posted on the I Love Wight Facebook page, a warning to all, don't go anywhere near the clay by the woods beach. It is very dangerous, and this was just a simple fall in it. However, huge thanks to the emergency services, Coast Guards, firemen, paramedics and ambulance crews who rescued me, and the lovely people on beach I shouted to and stayed with me. Huge thanks to St Mary's Hospital, where I am now receiving the most amazing care. A wonderful hospital, the best I have been in. This has been a bit of a shock as I'm visiting the island. I'm a regular visitor here, but that is what it's so special about the Isle of Wight. All the wonderful people.
Council crackdown on parking fine evaders by David Anderson. The Isle of Wight Council has threatened to seize and destroy vehicles if people persistently evade parking fines. A crackdown on persistent evaders launched last week could see vehicles towed away within 45 minutes and kept in storage. Vehicles will only be released on payment of the appropriate fees and will be disposed of if payment is not made within 36 days. A persistent evader is a registered keeper of a vehicle with 3 or more unpaid penalty charges. There were 76 vehicles on the island with more than 10 unpaid parking fines issued between 2005 and 2018, as of September 2018. Some have no registered keeper and continue to be issued with fines. Councillor Ian Ward, Cabinet Member for Infrastructure and Transport, said some people regularly or deliberately broke parking and traffic rules and refused to pay up. Councillor Ward said some vehicles are not registered or not correctly registered on the DVLA database, and the owner is confident they can avoid paying any penalty charges. The Department for Transport Guidance advises local authorities to take the strongest possible action against such motorists. This new policy allows us to do that. The Council will work with Island Vehicle Recovery Firm DH Price, DHP, on the scheme.
New boss at Homeless Unit. The Isle of Wight has a new regional manager for the Salvation Army's Homelessness Services Unit. Laurie Anderson from Portsmouth will help homeless people rebuild their lives. She will be responsible for the organisation's homelessness support services team across Somerset, Dorset, Wiltshire, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. For 12 years, Laurie has worked in mental health and homelessness services. She said, "Homelessness is a complicated issue and people from all walks of life can find themselves experiencing homelessness for a wide range of reasons. I am very proud to be taking on this role and to lead a team of dedicated professionals whose work to support vulnerable people to rebuild their lives is becoming increasingly important in today's society." On the island, the unit runs the Fellowship House and Melville Street Life Houses in Ryde and the Carisbrooke Priory Life House. Major Hilaire Watchhorn, Assistant Territorial Director for the Salvation Army's Homelessness Services, said, "It's a pleasure to welcome Laurie. Her vast experience and knowledge of the homelessness and the issues surrounding it will doubtless inspire her team to keep delivering and striving to improve the outstanding service we provide."
Helicopter rescue after 15-year-old boy falls down cliff face. 3 rescue helicopters were called to Yaverland on Saturday after a teenager fell down the cliff. The Hampshire and Isle of Wight and Thames Valley air ambulances, together with the UK Coast Guard helicopter, Bembridge and Ventnor Coast Guard rescue teams and paramedics were called to the scene at 2:40 p.m. An Isle of Wight ambulance service spokesperson said the 15-year-old boy had slipped and fallen partway down the cliff. The spokesperson said the boy was conscious and breathing when he was rescued, and his injuries were not thought to be life-threatening. He was airlifted to Southampton General Hospital by the Coast Guard helicopter.
Drug misuse deaths double within the decade. The number of people dying from drug misuse on the Isle of Wight has more than doubled within the last decade. Drug-related deaths have increased again, with the mortality rate above the national average. There are 38 deaths related to drug poisoning on the island in 2016 to 18, including 29 relating to drug misuse, according to a report published this week by the Office for National Statistics, that's ONS. A death is classed as drug misuse if it was due to drug abuse or dependence, or if it involved a controlled substance. The number of drug misuse deaths has more than doubled on the island since 2010 to 12, when there were 13 deaths, and increased slightly on the last reported figure of 28 for 2015 to 17. The Isle of Wight's mortality rate for drug misuse deaths is also 67% higher than the national average for 2016 to 18. England's age standardised mortality rate is 4.5 deaths per 100,000, but the figure for the Isle of Wight is 7.5 per 100,000. An Isle of Wight Council spokesperson said the Isle of Wight Public Health Team commissions substance misuse services to work with people of all ages to tackle drug abuse. This includes providing medical and behavioural support for people to sustain changes and reductions in drug use, and providing the facilities for safe use of drugs and detoxification. The team works closely with the providers to make sure services are flexible to the needs of the population and people can access support from across the island. Local partners in the police, probation and across health and social care work closely with the public health team to ensure there is a coordinated response to drug misuse and that people can access support for their wider needs. Public Health also works with the inclusion team to regularly review the causes and lessons that can be learnt from the drug-related deaths. A proactive approach is taken, feeding this back into the services to make sure actions are taken to intervene early and prevent deaths where possible. This is part of a continued effort to improve drug and alcohol services on the island, ensuring people can access appropriate coordinated support to sustain reductions in drug use.
Woman's body found. Police searching for a missing woman have found a body in Ventnor. An appeal was launched on Sunday morning to find Jennifer Kay, aged 69, of Ventnor, who was last seen at around 10:30 p.m. the previous night. Shortly before 2 p.m. that day, police and Coast Guards were called to the beach near La Falaise car park, where the body was found. A police spokesperson said, "Formal identification is ongoing, but Jennifer's next of kin have been made aware of the discovery. At this stage, the death is not being treated as suspicious. A file will be prepared for the coroner."
Councillor murder suspect in court. The man charged with the murder of former Isle of Wight councillor Jerry Wight appeared at Southampton Crown Court last Thursday. Jonathan Christopher Stasiuk, aged 60, of Pier Street, Sandown, has been remanded to the next hearing on September the 12th. The case was adjourned pending psychiatric reports and no plea was entered. Police found the body of 73-year-old Mr White in Lake Community Gardens near Scotchels Brook Lane at Lake on May the 27th.
10 crews tackle fire at school site, an article by Laurie Little. Dozens of firefighters from every island fire station were drafted in on Monday night to tackle a blaze at the derelict lower site of Christ the King College. Crews from all 10 fire stations worked through the night to control and eventually extinguish the fire, which took hold in the roof space of the single-storey building at Wellington Road, Carisbrooke. The building is the former Trinity Middle School. The crews used a total of 28 breathing apparatus in the major incident. Fire engines were sent from Newport Cowes, East Cowes, Sandown, Shanklin, Ventnor, Freshwater, Yarmouth, Ryde and Bembridge. A spokesperson from the Isle of Wight Fire Service said the building, due for demolition, had a fire in the roof space measuring 50 metres by 70 metres. The initial call came through at 11:08 p.m. We weren't expecting the incident to be so big at first, as we had only one call from the public, but we were soon asked for more support. It kept us very busy through the night. 4 fire engines from Hampshire were sent to provide cover should any other incidents have occurred. The fire was extinguished at 4:18 a.m. on Tuesday. A police spokesperson said no significant damage was caused. The site is due to be demolished soon, and as such the owners do not request any further police action. The Isle of Wight Council's Cabinet Member for Public Protection, Councillor Tig Outlaw, said, "I would like to thank our Fire and Rescue Service for their professionalism and swift action in dealing with this incident at this derelict site. Clearly, the cause will be fully investigated and the site, which was under the responsibility of contractors, will remain closed. It is not believed the incident will affect the running of the school when it reopens next term."
A near miss for a shopper. A rusty pipe fell from the roof of a Newport High Street building, nearly striking a woman below. Kaya Anderson, aged 47, was walking with her husband Jeff Schmidt, aged 53, when the pipe fell to the ground. Mr. Schmidt said Kaya was in shock. People rushed over to ask if she was okay. Miss Anderson said, "I felt it graze my shoulder, then it just fell at my feet. It was quite frightening. If I was walking a few steps faster, I could be dead by now, or in hospital." The pipe was kept by staff at Monsoon, who tried to contact the owner of the property above. The county press also tried to contact the owner, who was unavailable for comment.
Burger King drive-through at Coppins approved. Plans for a drive-through Burger King and 24-hour gym at Coppins Bridge next to Cineworld have been approved by the Isle of Wight Council. The company behind the scheme, Otium Real Estate, has been granted permission for the drive-through, gym and 2 retail spaces. It said the development would bring 2 large, vacant retail units back into use, ensuring the future viability of the wider site. The drive-through will be the Isle of Wight's first Burger King, and the gym will be run by the Gym Group. Otium said they would create more than 50 new jobs. Kate Simpson from the Pegasus Group planning consultancy said the vitality and viability of the town centre will be enhanced through the proposal, and attracting the Gym Group and Burger King demonstrates investor confidence in the potential growth for Newport, which will act as a catalyst for further regeneration and investment.
Conviction after stash of weapons is discovered. A man has been convicted of weapon offences after police found weapons including axes, knives and a crossbow in his car. Gavin Price, aged 45, of Downsview, Sandown, appeared at the Isle of Wight Crown Court last Tuesday, where he was found guilty of 17 offences, including possession of an imitation firearm, possession of offensive weapons and possession of bladed articles. In October last year, the court heard police stopped a car at Perone Way, which was being driven without an MOT. Police said the driver, Price, was obstructive, and the officers found out why when they searched the vehicle. Price, who had a lock knife tucked into his belt, had a crossbow and bolts in the boot of his car. Officers also found hunting knives, more lock knives, axes, and a BB gun. He was subsequently arrested and charged. Price has been remanded in custody and will be sentenced at Portsmouth Crown Court on September the 27th.
And that's the last article from us, so goodbye from Pauline.
And it's bye-bye from Mike. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good morning, everyone. This is the County Press for August the 23rd, read by Barry and
Linda. Hello.
And I begin with a letter for Lord Adonis to ponder. It's from Paul Knocker of Bembridge. I was astonished to read the report on your front page on the 9th of August that Lord Adonis has stepped into the fixed link debate because his ferry was delayed for an hour and has raised questions about our MP's interest in the subject. Lord Adonis has never faced a public election, but he was Secretary of State for Transport under Tony Blair's auspices. Then in 2015 he was appointed the first chairman of George Osborne's new National Infrastructure Commission. There is not much information on what was accomplished in those 2 years before he resigned, but it must have given him a clear insight into the many serious transport infrastructure problems across the country: roads, railways and airport capacity. Where would a fixed link to the island fit into his priorities? Suddenly, Lord Adonis seems to have an amazing understanding of the island. How many times has he actually been here? His criticism of our MP, quote, "he fiddles while Rome burns," end of quote, was grossly irresponsible. He has listed some of his priorities, including nationalising the ferry companies. No surprise there. But would this happen before or after the construction of a fixed link? Then he suggests a job strategy drawn up by the Treasury. Is he serious? Perhaps the real priority now is to find out whether the majority of residents and regular visitors want to retain the status of an island. From the correspondence on Facebook, there seems to be an assumption that everyone wants some form of fixed link, ignoring the cost, national priorities and the consequences for resources and infrastructure. Wight Link carries more than 4.5 million people to and from the island every year, including residents, holidaymakers and business people. Red Funnel's Red Jet carries 1.1 million passengers on its 18,600 crossings annually, with 2.3 million travelling on the Car Ferry's 11,800 trips. Red Funnel reliability figures for June 2019 stands at 99.33%. I have no connection or interest in either company. We need really to hear more from the people who really know and love the island. Lord Adonis should read Isle of Wight Living magazine and buy a copy of the recently published The Wight Book, which endorses why the island is recognised globally for its unique history, creativity and its natural heritage.
And now a letter from Cliff Bennett of Yarmouth, entitled Manic Monday Gridlock was worse I have seen in 30 years as a driver. I have been a truck driver on the island for more than 30 years, and Monday, August the 12th, was the worst traffic congestion I have ever experienced. Wherever I tried to get to, every route was gridlocked in every direction. There were several contributory factors which exacerbated the situation. The weather was foul, and people were driving around aimlessly, not knowing what to do with themselves. However, the biggest single factor was the ludicrous decision to close Pelhurst Road Ride to traffic, effectively cutting off the route to the east and southeast Wight. Such diversion signs as were in place were so ambiguous that even I couldn't follow them, and I've lived on the island for 40 years. The island is saturated with roadworks on every major route, with the extra delays incurred at temporary traffic lights. The new generation of traffic lights that are being installed are already shown to have phasing problems, with not enough time being allowed for a substantial amount of traffic to clear them before they change again. The island was, in fact, totally gridlocked for most of the day. Standing traffic produces more greenhouse gases as catalytic converters do not work effectively when an engine is idling. I would think this is making the island a very polluted region. The people who advocate a fixed link should be careful what they wish for. Traffic on the island is regulated by volumes that can be brought by the ferries and is distributed between 3 ports, usually on an hourly basis. This means the traffic has time to dissipate before the next ferries. A single point entry and exit destination will concentrate all traffic in one particular area. Add on to that the extra volume that's likely to come, and last Monday's scenes will be just a drop in the ocean.
Now we have a letter from Millie of Carisbrook. Last Saturday I went shopping, happily packed the goods into my trolley, but then panicked as I could not remember my PIN number. After the 3rd try, my card was rightfully rejected. As I struggled home, another lady caught up with me and told me that she had bought the food and helped me home with it. Her husband had followed in his car. I am sorry I can't remember her name or face, but she was certainly in my prayers.
And now from Anya Edgerton, aged 14, entitled Treat with Care. For a long time, Britain has prided itself on its democracy, a word that has been diluted with overuse. Democracy concerns everything from rubbish collection to economic development. On average, the Isle of Wight Council has a full meeting every 54.5 days. In each meeting, there are 15 minutes dedicated to public questions from the public. That's 1 hour 40 minutes. 140,000 people have to question their authority in an entire year. This question time isn't that great, however. When I attended the most recent meeting, it was tarnished by the rudeness of the chair, Councillor George Cameron. As soon as anyone uttered anything longer than a simple sentence, they were interrupted by, "Get to the question." And nearly all questions were met with an annoyed and annoyingly simple answer. Later in the meeting, a woman stood to talk about her petition, for which she was allowed a measly 3 minutes. She spoke with experience, but was cut off as if standing trial. Cuts have left the council struggling, but who else can we go to? Our MP, who doesn't answer emails, or who I have rarely seen publicise or hold a surgery. I'm 14, and I don't want to grow up somewhere where I am not listened to.
And then we have my view from Jim Gibbons. People should admit their guilt or stay in jail. Who said better 10 guilty men go free than one is wrongly convicted? If I was ever in a chatting situation with a High Court judge, well, let's get too pernickety. A low court judge will do, and is equally unlikely as I do not move in those circles. These are some of the questions I would like to ask her. What proportion of those found guilty are not guilty of that crime, in her professional opinion? I imagine that question would be unwelcome, and that would elicit an evasive answer, such as nowhere near as many as the guilty ones who are found not guilty. Suppose an innocent person is convicted, sentenced and jailed. Would you advise them to admit guilt in order to avoid longer or even permanent incarceration? And supposing that person was your child. Under English law, if someone pleads not guilty and is given a verdict of guilty, they are not then charged with perjury, the reason being that people are not required to incriminate themselves. That principle, however, is eroded when they are offered a lesser sentence if they plead guilty, and thrown to the winds when they are sentenced to imprisonment. Although the authorities equivocate, it seems clear parole is mostly not given to those who do not admit their guilt. And yet it must surely be accepted by the most stalwart upholder of our legal system that there must be some who are found guilty who are not. There certainly have been in the past. What about the Guildford 4, the Birmingham 5, and the Maguire 7? The Freshwater 5 may in similar situation today. The judge would of course say the judiciary do not make these regulations. They are made by civil servants, and they in turn are acting on the instructions of MPs. All these bodies would point the finger at the juries who had brought in the verdict of guilty. It would be of value to ask those jury members who convicted someone later proved innocent how that could ever have happened. The advice quoted in my previous column, if at first you don't succeed, skydiving is not the sport for you, can be seen on the wall amongst other wit at chipmunks who know me as a medium cod, fish cake, small chips and peas in Monkton Street, Ryde. Now who said better 10 guilty men go free than one is wrongly convicted?
And now some what's on, starting with West Wight. Southern Water will hold a community outreach event offering advice on cheaper tariffs, services for vulnerable customers and water-saving tips at Moa Place Car Park, Freshwater, on Tuesday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. A Messy Church Family Fun Day organised by Churches Together in the West Wight is being held next Saturday, August the 31st, at Colwell Common from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Free entry and free activities including a bouncy castle, climbing wall, mini traction engine, table games and crafts, free tea and cake. Auditions for new Strolling Players 2019 Panto production of King Arthur will be held at Freshwater Memorial Hall on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. New members welcome. Children must be at least 10 and accompanied by an adult. Rehearsals will be on Tuesday and Wednesday evenings, starting in December, and the performance dates are December 12th, the 13th and the 14th. West Wight Time Bank has launched an environmentally friendly mobile refill station for washing up liquid, laundry liquid, shampoo, conditioner, hand wash and multi-purpose cleaner at St Saviour's Holy Family Centre, Totland, on the first Friday of the month, 11 a.m. to noon. Freshwater Coffee House on the third Wednesday of the month, from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m, and West Wight Sports and Community Centre on the last Thursday of the month, 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Bring a clean bottle for a refill at competitive prices. An indoor market is held each Friday at Freshwater Memorial Hall from 8:30 a.m. to noon. Homemade cakes, bric-a-brac, plants, Avon, puzzle books, produce, collectibles, greeting cards from 50p, jewellery, Isle of Wight gifts, soft furnishings, large and small toys, and household items. Refreshments are available.
North Wight, the Children's Lego Club, will be held at Cowes Library tomorrow, Saturday, 10 a.m. to noon. The finished piece will be displayed at the library. A great family activity. Children must be accompanied by an adult. At East Wight, St Edmund's Church, Wootton, will hold its annual open weekend starting tomorrow, Saturday, and continuing until Monday. Displays, books, registers and refreshments are all welcome. The second ride, Boys Brigade, will hold a coffee morning at Ryde Methodist Church Hall tomorrow, Saturday, 10 a.m. to noon. Stalls, cakes and hot drinks.
And in South Wight, are you an artist or crafter? Brading Youth and Community Centre is looking for people to take part in an art exhibition in October. For further details, call Sue Birch on 407 723. Professor Scott Armbuster, an ecology and evolution professor at Portsmouth University, will give a talk entitled "How Can Humans Best Influence the Delicate Engineering and Co-Evolution of Flowers and Bees?" at Ventnor Botanic Garden on Tuesday at 6 p.m. The plantation room will be open for drinks before and after the talk. Suggested donation £5. Braiding Men in Sheds meet on Thursday 10 a.m. to noon at Braiding Youth Club. Everyone welcome to make things, learn things and drink tea. Braiding Community Choir meets on Tuesday at St Mary's Church Hall 7:15 p.m. to 8:45 p.m. and Ventnor Baptist Church has a drop-in centre on Wednesday between noon and 2 p.m. A coffee morning takes place at Sandown Methodist Church on Tuesday, 10:15 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Shanklin Youth and Community Centre will hold an adult social and activity club for the over 40s from 10 a.m. to noon on Thursday. Quizzes, pool, games and more. TC's is the Friday night venue for those in Year 5 or above from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. with a disco, gaming lounge and a sweets and drinks bar. Shanklin Community Library runs its Keep Calm and Carry On sewing session every Wednesday from 10 a.m. to noon and a calming colouring club on Fridays at 4:15.
I think I must have the wrong page. I'm not on the page that you've been reading. Freshwater golfer Ryan Harmer is over the moon after he earned his highest ever career finish on the professional European Tour. The islander, based at Brockenhurst Manor Golf Club in Hampshire, came second in the latest round of the Hotel Planner Com PGA Euro Pro Tour at Fieldford Heath, Oxfordshire. Ryan's 13 under par score was 2 strokes short of Bradley Moore's card, which earned him a tidy £6,000 prize. His rounds included scores of 68 twice and a 67. Ryan, a member of Shanklin and Sandown Golf Club, said, "My first professional win was pretty close, but it was great to get into contention this week at Filford Heath on the Europro Tour. Time to refresh and prepare for my last 3 events, which start in Ireland on August the 28th.
A comic writer's war tale set on the island. A new comic book adventure set on the island has been published in this month's edition of the long-running Commando series. In the take, Radar Raiders, 2 young island boys discover a secret German plan to invade and take the radar station at Ventnor during the Second World War. Its writer, Russell Sheath, said, "They always write about what you know. They say always write about what you know. And I know about the military, comic books, and the island. The story draws from my childhood playing soldiers on the downs around Ventnor. It's a real boy's own adventure story, a real classic retro story. I had this idea of what if there had been secretly an attempted German invasion of the island and the government covered it up to keep morale high." The story was published in issue 5251 of Commando with artwork by Keith Burns, who has previously drawn from comic legend Garth Ennis. Russell added, "The story combines my having grown up on the island with my passion for comics, which I have been reading for as long as I can remember. This was my first published work of fiction. In fact, this was actually my first real published work. But they have just given the thumbs up to my next pitch, which is set in the Scottish Highlands." Russell Sheath signed copies of his work at Heroes Comics, Newport, on Saturday.
It's good to be, quote, healthily patriotic in these uncertain times, said soprano Leslie Garrett in the run-up to her headline appearance at the Wight Proms. The singer said she was looking forward to the traditional flag-waving last night of the Proms finale at the Northwood House concert, and it was just what the country needed, whether or not we Brexit. Leslie told the county press, "It is very good to be healthily patriotic in these difficult times of Brexit. In uncertainty, it is important to rally the community. Uplifting, rousing music sends the message we can be strong and resourceful whether we leave or remain." Leslie will be accompanied by the 50-piece Wight Proms Concert Orchestra. "The bigger the better as far as the orchestra is concerned. It is what the music was written for," she said. "I love the sensitivity and breadth an orchestra can bring. I really love singing outdoors, as it is quintessentially British. I love looking out over people picnicking, drinking fizz, waving flags, children running around and maybe seeing an orchestra for the very first time. I always talk the audience and tell people all about what they are listening to." Leslie became friends years ago with Mike Christie, Wight Proms promoter, and one of the original members of G4. Over the years they have sung together many times, performing Barcelona in several television appearances. "We did a cracking version," Leslie said. "I've supported Mike and G4 ever since. I think what Mike is doing with Wight Proms is brilliant. It's going to be a huge success. The Isle of Wight is a wonderful music venue, of course with the pop festival, but it is good to offer music for other tastes too. Wight Proms last night of the Proms is nearly sold out and takes place on Sunday, September the 1st. A show of songs from hit musicals starring Ruthie Henschel takes place on Saturday, August the 31st. A comedy night starring Alan Davis and Shappi Khorsandi will be held on Friday, August the 30th.
Fans of Barbara Dixon will be delighted to hear she's on tour with the talented Nick Holland, who plays keyboards and sings. The pair intimately shape their music to suit the fact that only 2 people are on stage, sharing the space and filling it with superb crafted sound. This results in a mature mixture of sublime old and new songs. As a multi-million selling recording artist with an equally impressive Olivia Award, winning acting career, Barbara Dickson has firmly established herself as one of the most enduring and popular artistes in Britain today. Catch her stunning show at Medina Theatre next year on Wednesday, March the 11th. All tickets are priced £30 and are now available. Another great date for your 2020 diary is Ben Hart's show on Saturday, February the 29th. The Britain's Got Talent 2019 finalist, West End star and multi-award winning magician is embarking on his debut solo tour. At the age of 16, Ben won the Magic Circle's Young Magician of the Year. Now 26, he is a member of the Inner Magic Circle with a gold star. Ben was also the proud recipient of the Marvin Rising Star Award at the Magic Circle in 2018. Described by David Walliams as the living embodiment of magic, Ben has recently played to royalty, heads of state and celebrities in West End theatres, international arenas and on dozens of UK and international TV appearances. These include his own series on BBC Three, The One Show, and BBC One's Now You See It. Expect Ben's most mind-blowing and exciting magic in a show that shines a light on magic, life, the universe, and the darkest corners of your imagination. With the simplest of props, using the objects and minds of the audience, Ben Hart conjures up an altogether new kind of magic, and you can see this amazing show at Medina Theatre. Adult tickets are £17 and concessions cost £15.
Bob Dylan's Palladian-style stage to be lovingly recreated. 50 years to the day since Bob Dylan graced the stage at the 1969 Isle of Wight Festival of Music, the celebrity $1 million bash artists will strut their stuff on a replica structure. The team behind the one-day festival on Saturday, August the 31st at the County Showground will recreate the stage. Back in 1969, promoter Bill Falk constructed a stage based on classical Greek architecture. The Palladian-style stage had more than a whiff of the Parthenon about it, and Bill's brother and co-promoter Ray Falk recalled Bill made a trip to Pinewood Studios to wrench props to adorn the stage. The job of recreating the look of the stage has gone to Ellie Moore, who said, "We very much want to create something of a replica. It was Greek-themed and Parthenon-esque. It will have those Palladian influences and adornments and similar colour themes of white, blue and yellow. And just like the 1969 festival, we will be leaving it up until the 11th hour to finish the thing. I hope the audience approves, and if there are any old hippies who saw the original, I am sure they will recognise the inspiration behind the 2019 version. The stage will look familiar to several performers, while returning having featured alongside Bob Dylan in 1969, including Julie Felix, Jackie McShee's Pentangle, Dick Taylor and Phil May from the Pretty Things, and Andy Roberts of the Liverpool Scene. And you can win some tickets to the $1 Million Bash Festival. 3 family VIP tickets to the $1 Million Bash can be won by County Press readers. Each winner will win a ticket to admit 2 adults and 2 under 18s, with a complimentary $1 Million Bash event programme and the opportunity to go backstage to meet your favourite artists, subject to availability. All you have to do is to enter is send us your contact details and correctly answer the following question. Which Bob Dylan track was in the UK singles chart at the time of the 1969 Isle of Wight Festival? Was it Blowing in the Wind, A Hard Rains Are Gonna Fall, or Lay Lady Lay? Send your answer to competition at wcp.co.uk by Thursday, August the 29th. Alternatively, you can drop your entry into $1 million bash competition. Isle of Wight County Press. Brennan House, 123 Pyle Street, Newport, Isle of Wight, PO 30IST. Winners will be selected at random and notified by the county press on Thursday. And an exhibition on how the Isle of Wight stole Dylan from Woodstock. One of the organisers in the 1969 festival, who stole Bob Dylan and the band from Woodstock, is holding an exhibition to commemorate the visit. The exhibition, Stealing Dylan, tells of how Dylan, one of the biggest stars on this planet, was wooed to headline on a small island. It will feature rare family photographs, press releases, memorabilia and newspaper articles. Ray Falk was one of the three brothers who went to the USA to persuade Bob Dylan to headline on the island. It was the only complete show he played in 8 years. The exhibition at Dimbola Museum and Galleries, Freshwater Bay, runs from tomorrow until October the 23rd. Alongside Ray's exhibition, Guy Portelli will showcase some responses to Dylan by modern painters and sculptors, and Dr. Brian Hinton will share items from his personal collection, including the rare Martin Sharp silkscreen print of Mr. Tambourine Man.
And now in the gardening section, time was just a few years ago when peaches were not on the horizon of most gardeners, but it just shows how much the climate is a-changing that peaches, apricots and all manners of plants, formerly thought of as not hardy enough for the UK, now flourish. In Bailey's compact garden, in Paul Bailey's compact garden, his beech tree has prospered to such a degree that early in the year he was forced to break out his loppers to create a bit more much-needed space for his other plants, including a 40-year-old wisteria. Paul was unexpectedly rewarded for his surgery by his formerly giant peach producing a burgeoning harvest of juicy fruit. He was forced to take drastic action as his garden is only 20 foot by 11 foot, but is testament to what can be achieved in a small space. He rescued his peach from B&Q as a 6-foot single-stem tree that looked like it was dying and was labelled as a nectarine. He knocked down the price to just $5, and it has rewarded him for his rescue by fruiting for 4 of the 5 years he has had it. Paul makes up his own mixture, which he applies early in the year to reduce leaf curl, which is a common peach pest. At the same time I was tucking into some of Paul's peaches and enjoying smoothies, a press release arrived from the fruit tree company Lubera, telling me it has launched 2 new varieties, Varoma Bello and Varoma Pico, created from a cross between the original Tibetan peach Prunus mira and peaches that are resistant to leaf curl. They, like Paul's peach, are also said to be tasty, juicy, self-fertile and tolerant to thinning.
A driving addict has been sentenced for dangerous driving for the 4th time after he led police on a chase through Ryde, drove for more than a mile after losing a wheel, then crashed the car before fleeing the scene. One-armed Joseph Baker, 25 of Chapel Street, Newport, appeared at the Isle of Wight Crown Court on August the 6th, where he was sentenced for 2 counts of driving while disqualified and 1 count of dangerous driving. He had admitted the offences at a previous hearing. The court heard a green BMW was spotted twice by members of the public on July the 1st and July the 4th, speeding through the streets of Ryde. At 9:03 p.m. on July the 4th, the BMW, which was being driven by Baker, overtook a police car at Pell Lane, resulting in a police chase that ended with Baker crashing and abandoning the car. Emily Lanham, prosecuting, said, "Due to the high speed, it became unsafe to continue the pursuit. The car was later spotted having collided with a Renault and a Peugeot, and the BMW had lost a wheel. The BMW was then driven a further mile without the wheel." The court heard Baker had previously been convicted of driving while disqualified in 2017 and 2018. Kelly Brocklehurst, defending, said, "This is hardly the worst case of dangerous driving Your Honour will have seen. The defendant's urge to drive is an addiction that gives rise to a very divided individual. He is kicking himself for putting in danger things he had built up in his life." Baker was sentenced to 14 months in prison. In addition, his existing driving ban was increased by 3 years and 7 months. Judge Roger Hetherington said, "It has been said you have an addiction to driving. If you can't control it, to protect the public, you must face a custodial sentence."
Several Isle of Wight Scouts took part in the World Scout Jamboree. Among them were Adam Burt of Cowes, Matthew Dyer of Newport, and Charlotte Morgan of Totland, who went to the Scout Skills Festival in West Virginia, USA. They were among 9,000 scouts worldwide taking part in the Jamboree, a festival offering young people the chance to learn new skills and a taste of adventure. Adam, 14, and Matthew, 15, said they had an amazing time and enjoyed trying new activities such as scuba diving. Charlotte, 14, enjoyed meeting lots of new people from around the world and making new friends. She said, "I met some scouts from Scotland. We climbed at the Boulder Cove, and after a bit of encouragement, everyone made it to the top. It was impossible to be bored."
Some of the Chihuahuas rescued by the RSPCA are ready to be rehomed. Police were called to an address at Fellows Road, Cowes, last month, and they seized 65 Chihuahuas from a van and house. They were placed in the care of the Isle of Wight branch of the RSPCA. Last Friday, the charity said a few of the dogs were now available for adoption. It said, "We are so very happy that a few of the Chihuahuas in care are now ready for a new home. An RSPCA perfect match form must be completed, and we operate on a best match basis, not first come, first served. Home checks will be required as standard. We expect we will be overwhelmed with forms, which is such a great news for the dogs. Yet this may mean many humans could be disappointed. Please know we value everyone who reaches out to offer a home, and thank you in advance."
An employment tribunal has upheld 6 allegations against a Yarmouth Harbour employee relating to a violation of harbour rules and regulations. Jeremy Butcher, known as Jez, was sacked 2 days after his wife's funeral, following a lengthy disciplinary process. A final judgment has now been made against Mr. Butcher, after which both parties settled the dispute and Mr. Butcher withdrew his claim against the harbour. Due to a procedural error at the original appeal hearing, the tribunal was compelled to make a finding of unfair dismissal. Originally, Mr. Butcher's basic and compensatory awards were reduced by 85%, but the harbour applied for a reconsideration because it believed the reduction in compensation did not reflect the likelihood that Mr. Butcher was fairly dismissed. Judge Maxwell agreed to reconsider the original decision and reduced Mr. Butcher's compensatory award by 85% to reflect the prospect that Mr. Butcher would have been fairly dismissed in any event, and a further 25% to reflect his contributory conduct. Yarmouth Harbour Master Tim Adams said, "This was an unfortunate situation. However, I am satisfied the harbour has acted entirely appropriately in accordance with both employment law and harbour law, which is reflected in the tribunal's judgment."
A dentist in Ryde has written and illustrated a book for children, and all profits go to Daisy Chain's Isle of Wight charity. Joanna Thompson's work, a rhyming alphabet book with pictures of activities she has enjoyed on the island with her children, has already raised more than £700. The book encourages parents to read to their children and got them saying, "I love you." Joanna works at Denby House Dental Surgery. The surgery also runs a recycling scheme to recycle plastic toothbrushes, packaging and toothpaste tubes.
A senior soldier from the Isle of Wight has been appointed to the position of conductor. Warrant Officer Neil Scott was one of 5 Royal Logistics Corps, RLC, senior soldiers granted the position. He said, "It's a great honour and privilege to work alongside the current 8 conductors and to join those that have received this appointment since 1327. The position is enshrined in Queen's regulations and endows those appointed with seniority within the army and in their trade or profession." The Duke of Gloucester presented Neil with his parchment. Neil, who's 40, from Cowes, was supported by his wife Abby and daughters Alicia and Lauren. Neil is the Command Master Driver and Head of Trade for drivers within the RLC.
And that is all for this week. This is Barry wishing you a happy and enjoyable bank holiday, and don't get yourself too burnt in the sun, which has been prophesied will be around at that time.
Yes, and goodbye from Linda, and don't forget your hats.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Well, I think the first time I really felt utterly powerless as a young adult was when I was 16. It was my first year of sixth form, and there was a Duke of Edinburgh project being run, and it was an expedition to Malawi, and all of my friends were going, and the guy running the project came to visit the school. And at the very end of the presentation, I approached him just to say, "Oh, by the way, I'm partially sighted. What's your policy on taking visually impaired students on this trip?" Thinking he'd say, "Oh, well, it'll be absolutely fine." But of course, he froze and said, oh, well, absolutely not. We couldn't possibly take any visually impaired students on this trip. It was really the first time that I'd just come up against a complete brick wall, and there was no way of talking my way out of it. There was no way of reasoning with him. There was no way of negotiating. He simply wouldn't listen. So it was the first time I'd really experienced that shock of just having every shred of power taken from me by somebody else.
It's something you experience throughout life, I think. I'm a working class boy. One of my earliest memories is Dad and Uncle Ken knocking through the wall in the front room to make an arch between the front room and dining room. And from a very early age, you're kind of aware that you can't do those things. You're never going to be out there under the car, repairing it and so on. And those things matter because when you grow up in that environment, that's how you feel you should be. I think one thing I found is that as a child, you think, when I'm older, that's going to be different. And of course, it's not.
I have been involved with Toastmasters International for about 5.5 years now. And when I gave my first prepared speech to the club, and I was nervous about it, I'd practiced it and sat down again feeling a bit like a bag of nerves. And the feedback I got was that, although it had been a good speech, it was a shame I delivered this speech facing the wall. That's when I felt like I was really starting to lose control there. I couldn't believe that I'd managed to do that. Then the more I gave speeches in front of the club, my feedback would be, these are really great speeches. However, you are very static on the stage, and some hand gestures would really enhance this speech. Because I've never been able to see it, I have no understanding of body language. And I just went away and felt very sorry for myself and felt quite powerless.
Good evening. I don't think any regular listener to In Touch could accuse us of playing down the capabilities of blind people. After all, in our time, we've featured parachute jumpers, racing drivers, judges, Home Secretaries, acrobats, actors. I could go on. If anything, we could be accused of the reverse, playing down some of the difficulties of everyday life, which all but a few supermen and women have to contend with. Those voices you heard earlier belong to Chloe Clark, Alan Tweddle and Megan Paul, describing some experiences where their lack of sight isn't simply a physical deficit. It puts them in a situation which can affect that sense that we're all entitled to, surely, the sense that we're running our own lives, that we're in control. The contributors you heard just now used the word powerless, and what we hope to do in these two programmes is to listen to stories that have caused blind people to feel out of control, analyse them, and then perhaps concentrate on how to use the power we do have to put ourselves back in charge. So let's hear from our studio guests. Fern Lulham, I'm going to come to you first. Now, you've recently had something happen to you physically, which I think you would definitely say left you out of control. Just tell us about that.
Absolutely. I was in a car crash with my boyfriend. We were driving along a road towards Faversham and we were hit by another car. And obviously I knew that something had happened. In fact, I knew it was sort of coming just from my boyfriend's verbal reaction of going, oh my gosh, you know, I could tell something was about to happen. But of course I didn't know what. I didn't know which direction it was coming from. I felt very powerless to protect myself in that moment. And then obviously the collision happened and I didn't know which direction it had come from and why it had happened and who was in the wrong. I just went spinning out of control. All I could do was scream and cry in that moment. It was really terrifying.
And how long did the confusion last for?
It lasted a long time. Afterwards, I sat in a nearby garden of one of the neighbours that had luckily come out to support us and help us. And I still didn't know what was happening. And then I got on the phone with an emergency service guy and he was asking me, you know, is there anyone else on the road? Is there smoke? Is there gas on the road? And I had no idea. I didn't even know what had happened still.
So in a way, it wasn't just the very frightening thing that had happened to you, it was the fact that you couldn't give the information that you were expected to give.
Exactly, and it makes you feel like the other people were saying there, it just makes you feel so sort of downtrodden and useless and like everyone else could do this and I can't do it and I just feel hopeless in this. You know, I sort of felt like the man on the phone was like, oh God, you know, she doesn't know, she can't help me.
And afterwards?
Afterwards, sort of reflecting on the situation, I sort of wish I'd been a bit more assertive in terms of just asking people. I think because I was in a very vulnerable state, that's when my self-esteem issues, I would say, come into play. And I think, I'm going to sound stupid if I say I don't know what happened because I was in the car and everyone else thinks I know what happened because they may not know how bad my sight is. They've only just met me and all of that sort of stuff. So I felt stupid to say to the people around, I don't know what's happened. Can you tell me? And actually, that's ridiculous and I should have just asked.
Right. That's one sudden big event. I want to go to Red Sale. Now, you've been gradually losing your sight since teenager, married, you've a family, you've done a range of jobs. When have you felt most out of control over that period and what caused it?
I think, Fern's hit the nail on the head, that actually it's that lack of agency that you have when you've lost your sight, when you know that other people can see what's going on. And in my case, I know that I used to be able to see a lot of the things that I can no longer see. I hate to say it, I feel most in control when I'm climbing a rock and I've got all my hands and feet and no white stick in my hand and I just know what I'm doing and I'm following the cracks up the rock. And I feel least in control pretty much as soon as I leave my front door and walk up to my local tube station to go to work, because the randomness of stuff that gets left over the pavement changes every single day and you never know whether you're going to have an accident or not.
Has there been a correlation between the amount of sight you have, because it's changed over a period of time, and the amount of power you have?
I think definitely, yeah, certainly. The amount of power I feel I have, which is linked, as Fern says, to self-esteem, the less I can see, the more worried I am about being wrong-footed by the world around me.
And people would intuitively say that was logical, but I just wondered, because some people think that once sight is stable, then it's easier, if you like, to cope. Is there any element of that, or haven't you been stable enough to find out?
I'm clinging on to the last vestiges of shadows. Ask me in 6 months whether I feel a little bit more equal to it. I don't know. if it's not a static condition, I think it muddies the waters even more.
You talked about being anxious, but that isn't quite the same as being out of control, is it? I wonder what you mean by out of control.
I think out of control is when I have absolutely no idea whether I'm standing on a pavement or on a traffic island and there's traffic going all around me and I can't even hear people around me to ask. Anxious is wondering whether you're crossing the road as quickly as everybody else is around you and whether you should have just grabbed somebody's arm and say, could you give me a hand to the other side of the road? All of which is actually surrendering control of your own self.
Let me bring in Priya Commander. She is a psychotherapist. She is herself blind. Priya, everyone has accidents. Everyone feels inadequate at times. So in the context of blindness, are we any different to anybody else? Because, some blind people listening to this will say, yeah, well, it's everybody. You just shrug your shoulders and you get on with it.
Good question. No, I don't think we're any different. It's just that perhaps having any sort of impairment, you're more vulnerable. As, both Red and Fern have said, on a random, probably daily, potentially hourly, if you're out and about, basis, in the sense that if you can't see, things happen, or there are situations that you don't understand because you don't have the visual information to tell you. So, yeah, it's about being vulnerable, I think, really. And we're all susceptible to that. It's just that when you're blind, you have to find strategies for coping with it, which also change, especially it sounds as though Red and I are in the same position in the sense that we both experienced gradual, inexorable sight loss, and that means constantly having to readjust your way of coping and doing things.
Well, the interesting word you use there is constantly, isn't it? Because I just wonder what effect the frequency with which these things happen is a big factor, is what perhaps makes it different from a blind person's point of view.
Yes, probably. I think that's true, that Fern's experience of a shocking car accident, that could happen to anybody, but it's first of all her response, but it's also potentially, if you're a blind or severely sight impaired person, you're susceptible to accidents every day.
And it does come, I guess, back to this situation of how you deal with it and what you do next, and the lack of information. Let me bring in Rob Murthwaite, now semi-retired, travels quite a lot. Like Red, you have retinitis pigmentosa. You're also a guide dog owner, and I think you've said that can cause you problems of control. Can you explain?
It can do, in the sense that a lot of people seem to feel free to interfere with the guide dog in a way that they probably wouldn't if I was using a white cane. They wouldn't be grabbing hold of it or stroking it. And so from time to time that can be a bit of an issue.
You've had a recent example, haven't you?
I was on the tube last week and I got into a narrow door on the Underground in London, and the dog just plonks himself down wherever he plonks himself down. There were people around who kept telling me my dog was in the way and so on and so forth, and trying to get me to move the dog. I just refused to do that and said, well, if people need to get past the dog, they'll have to ask me to move the dog. And of course I did do that.
But there's a sense, I suppose, in that situation that you are expected to do several things at once, in a way, including we're figuring out where everyone else is, where the dog is, where stuff's in relation to. And why actually didn't you move the dog? That would have been the easiest solution.
Because I didn't know where to move the dog to. And also, I think one of the things about being a visually impaired person is that, I think it's reasonable for me to expect other people to learn how to deal with it as well. It's not just a case of me dealing with my visual impairment. Other people need to be able to deal with it in a reasonable and sensitive way as well. So,
but I suppose the problem is that that's where the powerlessness comes in, because you're not going to suddenly get people to deal with it in a reasonable way, are you?
I think you have to take control of the situation and try in a nice way to help people learn
So
learn that.
I'm going to stay with you because that's what I was thinking. So you've led me to it. Now, what is power in this situation? How easy is it for you to take control, and how would you do it?
I think it's something that you learn in the process. I mean, I've been visually impaired, not all of my life, but for a very long time. I've had a severe visual impairment. And I think when I first began to lose my sight seriously, it was often a difficult relationship with sighted people from whom I needed assistance. But I've learned, I think, to be assertive in a gentle and reasonable way, and insistent on getting assistance in a particular kind of way. I know what I need, and I'm insistent on getting what I need and not what other people think I need. And sometimes that can cause problems for people.
Yeah, just staying with the issue of how you take power back. Fern, your first example was about just a physical occurrence, really, but you've had experiences where, you feel you've been rejected. I mean, I wonder how you define power in your situation.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I see power in terms of leadership, in terms of confidence, and in terms of control, like you say, having control over a situation. And I mean, Priya might know about this being a psychotherapist, but I would say sometimes power is about the way other people view you and how assertive you are, like Rob was saying there. And sometimes power is simply about how you view yourself and thinking, is this situation worth me getting this upset about? Because especially when we're in specific situations like this, they can upset us and we can think, oh, I'm useless and I'm hopeless. And that's fair enough, but we can also spiral out of control sometimes, and we can start making it a huge issue for now I can't do anything in life, and that, and that sort of overreacting. I think sometimes you do need to take a step back from the situation and look at it and say, well, yes, this happened and it was awful and it was horrible and there were certain things that I couldn't do. And for all means, be upset about that in the moment, but don't let it spiral out of control in your mind. Take back the power by seeing it for what it is.
So when do you feel most powerful, would you say?
I would say I feel most powerful when I'm giving knowledge and vulnerability to people. So talking about my experiences like I am now. I'm a public speaker, so I talk a lot about my ups and downs in life, my vulnerabilities. People say, there's a lot of power in vulnerability, and knowledge is power. And I think a lot of times being able to share those things with people about what it is actually like. When I was listening to all of these stories, I almost sort of started tearing up, just because when you listen to people and you know what they're going through, I think that's such a powerful thing, because it connects you with people. And instead of it being an us and them situation, like, oh, move your guide dog, you suddenly realise, oh, actually, if that was me, I would probably feel this and this and this, and it just bonds you in such a significant way. And I think there's huge power both in knowledge and vulnerability.
And Red, what about you? I mean, you mentioned rocks, but I'm thinking more in terms of interpersonal relationships. When do you feel most powerful, most at ease as well, possibly?
Like Fern, actually, when you're telling your story and you know that people are listening, that's when I feel that actually I've harnessed my blindness to do something effective that maybe other people can't do, or maybe not so many other people can do. And that's when I feel happiest on my blind turf, I suppose. I think it's also a matter of a lot of my dissatisfaction with my blindness was because I was brought up a sighted person and was surrounded by sighted people until I found out. I realised when I started losing my sight, I was running to keep up with them. And actually, I think if you can bring the world to a pace that you're happy with, then you'll feel more in control.
Do you try to, do you think about control? Do you plan it? Do you put yourself in situations where you will be?
Actually, I try and put myself in situations where I won't be in control or be controlled by other people. I try and put myself in situations where we're sharing responsibility. I'm good at doing the cooking and washing up. My children are far better at setting the oven temperature and making sure that something is browned on all sides.
Priya, what, from, if you like, a professional point of view, what's your view about whether actually there is power in vulnerability?
Yes, of course there is, because, otherwise you're fighting something internally and externally unless you do allow for whatever's going to happen. There's nothing wrong with trying to be in charge of our lives, but you can't control absolutely everything. That would be a nightmare. So, yeah, I think allowing yourself to be vulnerable. But I think just listening to everybody in terms of feeling powerful, it is an internal experience. People can be annoying, and especially if you've got a guide dog. I have one. I've been told, get the dog away and stuff on public transport. If I'm feeling a bit anxious and vulnerable or out of my comfort zone, I might react in an aggressive manner, or I might also feel sorry for that person for being such an idiot. So it really is very subjective how you respond and what makes you feel powerful, because something can have happened before that experience that is disempowering to add to it. So I think, most people do need to feel that they're in control most of the time, but to have some sort of techniques for managing when they're not.
Yes, so when, for example, you're in a situation where either you feel you want to or need to hand power to other people to get them to do things, can you do that without losing power yourself?
Well, I think that's very powerful, to be able to ask others to help you to do something that you need doing. And most of the time, my experience has been very good, that people like to be asked. I think that part of the problem for anybody with an impairment, whether it's visual or other, is that others are trying to second guess what you might need. So when you actually say, could you tell me how to get from A to B, or where the chair is, or where are the lavatories, people are delighted to be able to tell you, because they themselves are anxious in your company as to what you might need and whether they're going to read you right.
Can I come in there?
Yeah.
I think it's essential to every adult, isn't it, self-esteem, that you are an autonomous human being, in that you can control what you do, when you do it, and how you do it. And I think for any disabled person, certainly for myself as a visually impaired person, I understand very well that I need assistance and help from people. And I think that's true of all adults, actually. No man or woman is an island, in fact. And I think maintaining a feeling of self-esteem, power, if you like, in that situation is that you control what happens, which I think most of the time, not always, but most of the time, I manage to do that. And that's because I'm clear about what I want, and I'm also clear about the fact that I have a right as an autonomous adult to say that I want things done in a certain way.
So how much does external power influence internal power? I guess how you feel about yourself and the fact that you are managing to keep your self-regard. Fern?
I think it can, and like everyone's mentioned, it is inevitable in some respects. I think it's easy to say, the old adage of don't worry about what everyone says to you, just be confident in yourself, and that's all that matters. And we'd all love to reach that enlightenment, wouldn't we? But it's probably not going to happen. There are going to be things. Sometimes you can brush things off, sometimes you can't. And I think it's perfectly all right if you can't. You just need to forgive yourself for that. But I also do believe in building up your self-esteem, in being confident. And again, I guess it's that communication between the internal and external power, in that you want to see other people as working together with you rather than me versus the world. You want to see them as people that want to help you, and that you can help by sharing your knowledge. So I think the best way to cope with internal versus external power is to try and make them work together with good communication.
But how do you do it when you've had something really fairly massively debilitating in a way happen to you, when you have lost that power when you've had someone, for example, like Chloe was describing at the beginning, just saying, you can't do that, there's no way you can do that, and there is no way that you have of persuading me to let you?
I think sometimes you can try and fight back, and sometimes you can internally just say, do you know what? It isn't worth my energy or my time. This person clearly has a level of ignorance, because I've come up against those situations before where somebody has just literally stereotyped me or said, you can't do this. I was in a situation where my first boyfriend's parents just completely denied me, basically, simply based on the fact that I had a visual impairment. And for me, that was a lot about me knowing that that is just their opinion, and this whole idea of facts versus opinions, and knowing that just because somebody says you can't do something, just because somebody doesn't have the knowledge to accommodate you, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's your destiny and you can't do it and you never will. It's just about finding the right person.
But that does affect so many things, doesn't it? You can't just brush that off. I mean, I heard that story of yours, and that would affect his behaviour to you.
Yes.
And it's all very well to say, well, that's their opinion, but that's not how you feel inside, is it?
Not at the time. Absolutely not at the time. You know, it was a huge crash to my self-esteem. I think it's affected my relationship since then. I'm absolutely not saying that you just go, oh, well, that's just their opinion, never mind, and off you pop. It's certainly not like that. But I think in terms of moving on, when you have some time and some space, you have to look at it with a different perspective, and you have to just say, there are going to be some people who are going to view me like that. It doesn't mean the rest of the world is. But like I say, in order to just be okay with yourself, you've got to have coping mechanisms for these things. That's the only thing we can all do in life, is not to say, well, these things are never going to happen, but it's to say, how can I cope with them long term when they do?
Yes, but that requires quite a lot of work, coping, because I think for many of us anyway, we've had to adjust to sight loss over perhaps quite long periods of time. So confidence, it needs work, actually.
And how important is it, Priya, to confront this? Because some people will be irritated that we're even talking about it. And I just wonder how important you think it is to confront it.
I hate that word, confront. I don't know what it even means.
Well, some people will think even talking about it we shouldn't probably do, because
it's helpful to talk about these things, because everybody has experience of feeling disempowered at some point or other in their lives. And one of the things that I did want to say today about this is that actually my experience of being a blind person, either with a long cane or with my guide dog, is that I have quite a powerful effect on people especially strangers, when I walk into a room, perhaps in a professional capacity. And most of the people who are in that room who may not know me are quite thrown by the fact that there's suddenly a person with an impairment in the room, and they don't know what to do. And that's a powerful position to find yourself in, not necessarily positively powerful, because then I think all of us have to work very hard to try and, make ourselves pleasant and friendly and all the rest of it. But actually, having a disability is a powerful vehicle, actually. And it's about embracing the fact that you're not inconspicuous.
I find the first thing that happens when I walk into a room as a blind person is they offer me a chair, which, I don't know whether they are overwhelmed by my potential and feel they have to cage me, but that's certainly how it feels.
Well, I'm going to stop you there, because we always knew from the start that this subject was too much for one programme, and we're going to be returning to the subject next week with a different cross-section of visually impaired people with their own ideas and experiences. Meanwhile, thanks to Priya Commander, Rob Mirthwaite, Fern Lulham and Red Sail. From them, from me, Peter Wight, producer Lee Kumatat and the team, goodbye.
Good morning. This is the scaffolding news for Friday the 23rd of August. Starting in the Cowes area with current scaffolds, Cameos, Bath Road Cows, pending scaffolds, 43 Sunhill Cows, current skips, 38 Moor Green Road Cows, 5 Bayview Road Gurnard.
Good morning everyone, this is Mike. This is the Newport area scaffolding news. Current scaffolds are Units 1, 2 and 3, 32 High Street, Newport, 117, 118 High Street, Newport, Precision Hair, 50 St James's Street, Newport, Age UK 114A, Pyle Street, Newport, and 113 Pyle Street. There is a pending cherry picker due for Sheet Corner Cottage, Main Road, Chillerton.
In the Ryde area, the current scaffolds are at 35 to 36 High Street Ryde, flats 31 to 36 Mary Mead Close Ryde, Boots 170 High Street Ryde, Greenham's Newsagents High Street Ryde, 43 Nelson Street Ryde, 25 High Street Ryde, Olivo Restaurant 32 to 33 Union Street Ryde, Liz Earl Union Street Ryde, 138 to 139 High Street Ryde. Pending scaffolds, Royal York Hotel George Street Ryde, 23 St John's Road Ryde. Pending cherry picker, Wootton Industrial Estate, White Rails Road, Wootton. Current skips, Carita Stane Road Seaview, 10 Prince Street Ryde, 34 Church Close, Wootton.
Sandown and Shanklin area, current scaffolds, 42 Fitzroy Street, Sandown, 23 High Street, Shanklin. Current cherry pickers, Downs View, Sandown. Pending cherry picker, junction of Town Lane and York Road, Sandown, opposite William Hall Funeral Directors, Winford Road, Newchurch. Current hoardings at Premier Inn, 1 to 9 The Esplanade, Sandown. Pending mobile crane, Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown.
In the Ventnor area, current scaffolds corner of Trinity Road and Madeira Road, Ventnor, 1 Boniface Road and into Trinity Road, Ventnor. Current cherry picker, junction of Zigzag Road and Ocean View Road, Ventnor. Current skips, 16 South Street, Ventnor.
The West Wight area, current scaffolds are Hursts, 9 School Green Road, Freshwater, Oak Cottage, Farriers Lane, Shorewell. Current skips, Grassmere, Graham Road, Ryde. Grassmere, Graham Road, Yarmouth. And vehicle crossings under construction, The Meadows, Colwell Road, Freshwater, 8 Pitt Street, Ryde, Marvel Lodge, Marvel Lane, Newport, 3 Westwood Road, Ryde, opposite Bridle Way, R38 Newnham Road, Ryde, 28 Queens Road, Newport, and 13 Ashy Road, Ryde.